Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am in a different space today. My kids are officially on a summer break, which is awesome, but they are in the other portion of the house and hopefully you don't hear some background noise. They are watching a movie in the other room and I am sitting on the floor in yet a different room. So new space today. I feel like I just filmed my last wrap-up video, which technically is kind of true because I was very late in posting my, what even month? April wrap-up. Yes, because now we're finishing May. Technically, at the time of filming, there are still a few days. What day is today? There's still a few days left in May. But with the books that I still have or that I'm in the middle of, I don't think there's any way I'm going to finish anything else before the end of May. So I'm just going to go ahead and film while I have time. And worst case, if I finish another one by some chance, I'll include it next time. So in the month of May, I read a total of 9 books for 3,004 pages. The longest book that I read was 406 pages, and that was The Paris Apartment. And the shortest book was 288 pages, and that was Mama Cusses by Gwenna Lathland. 5 of the books I read were hard copy, and 4 were audiobooks. 8 of them I got for the library or Libby, and 1 was a gift. And all of my books, all 9, were fiction this month. So from using the library, using the Libby app, and being gifted a book, I saved about $131.30. Now, as for publication date of the books that I read this month, 2 of them were published in 2025, 1 was published in 2024, 3 were published in 2023, and then 1 book each published in 2021, 2018, and 2008. So again, almost all of them relatively new within the last handful of years. And I have started tracking the authors and where they are from. I have noticed recently that most of my reading has been books written by women authors. And it's kind of funny because, come on in, bub. Come on in, all the way. You can't stop in the middle. Get in, bring your tail. Bring your tail, good boy. Because for the longest time, I was reading books primarily by men. I was raised remarkably conservatively, and yes, men were the primary authors of the books that I read. So it was a very intentional choice to start reading women. And now I have noticed that I have gone so far to the other side. I don't necessarily have a problem with that, but I still just want to make sure that I am not getting into a bubble. I still want to read from male authors and non-binary authors. And yes, I just found it interesting as I've started to track that data again that the bulk of my reading has been from women. Also, I have attempted to create a map with where these authors are from. However, it was very difficult to get the pictures where they're supposed to be on the map. So this is just my first attempt at a map. I will be hopefully tweaking that and figuring out how to make this graphic look better. But for now, here's what I have. Almost all the authors are from North America. Almost all of them were from the United States, with 1 being from Canada. So that was also interesting this month. And it's just really nice to see the visual. And again, there's nothing wrong with reading authors from the United States or from North America. But yes, I just want to make sure that I'm not just in one bubble primarily throughout the year. According to Storygraph, the average time it took me to finish a book was 4 days, which is interesting because it felt like it was much longer this time. I feel like it took me longer to read than it usually does. But I mean, I guess this is the first month that I was a lot more careful in actually tracking the start date and not just the end date of finishing a book. So we'll see how that data kind of shifts and plays out as I progress with more months of data. Wait, this says that I read a nonfiction book this month? Oh, I did read a nonfiction. Okay, I completely forgot about my nonfiction. So 8 of my books were fiction and 1 was nonfiction. Okay, now for some highlights from May. I had some great books this month, and I have more than I usually do to highlight. The first one is The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. This book, I think I've said before on this channel, my son was reading it with his class at school, and I had never read it, so I decided to pick up a copy and read it alongside him. He read 2 chapters a day at school, and it was so hard for me to stick to those 2 chapters a day and not just rush ahead and finish, but we agreed we would finish it together, and I really enjoyed this book. Now, I will say I have said that I was raised remarkably conservatively, and When this book came out, I admit that I really judged this book, and I thought that there was no way that a book that dealt with this type of concept would be a good one to read at all. So that's one of the reasons that was the first reason for why I did not read it. And then after becoming a parent and just some things that happened in my early parenthood journey, I thought that it might be personally triggering for me. So in the more recent years, I guess over the last decade or so, that's kind of why I had avoided it. But over the last maybe 2-ish years, I kept thinking, maybe someday, I'm getting closer to maybe someday I'll read it. So when my son started reading it for his class, I decided that it was time. So, for those of you who don't know, this book has been out for quite a long time, so I feel like I was just assuming that everybody knew the concept, but actually there were 1 or 2 other booktubers that I remember seeing. I was watching their videos and they said that they recently read it for the first time as well, so that's kind of fun. It wasn't just me that's late to the game. So, The Hunger Games is a dystopian young adult book. It takes place in the future, but in what used to be North America, and the land is divided into 12 different districts. And every year, 2 tributes from each district are selected to compete in the Hunger Games. Now, these tributes can be anywhere between age 12 and 18, so these are children. And the Hunger Games is quite literally a fight to the death until all of the children, except for 1, have died. And there is 1 victor who is the winner of the Hunger Games, and then that winner takes home food and glory for their district. So the Hunger Games follows the story of Katniss Everdeen. She is the tribute from District 12, how she ends up being selected / volunteering to participate in the Hunger Games, and the other tribute from District 12 is Peeta, and without giving away any spoilers, how the 2 of them end up maneuvering through the Hunger Games, making friends, fighting enemies, and in all facets trying to survive. It had been a while since I had read any dystopian, but I have definitely really enjoyed some dystopian books that I have read, so it was really fun to get back into that genre. I do have to admit, just the fact that these are children, and especially some of the really young children, it was hard to read in parts. I definitely teared up, and just thinking about, my own kids and all those things. So it definitely was emotional in some parts. It definitely had a lot of interesting themes. And I do have to admit, it still is unsettling that these are literal children fighting to the death. It's just a very visceral emotion that it brings up. But it was a very quick read, a very easy read. I definitely was wanting to read more and get to the end and see how things sorted out. I had never even seen the movies, and I only knew the basics of the plot. So it was really fun just kind of getting into it for the first time. The second book to highlight is The Rival by Emma Lord, which once again is so funny to me because I had been wanting to not read as many romances. So this book came up on my holds at the library, and when I first got it, I was like, I'm gonna start it, but I'm pretty sure I'm gonna DNF because I cannot do another romance. I ended up loving this book. I recognize that there are different seasons, and that a book that I enjoy in one season, I may not enjoy in another one. So maybe it was just the season I was in, but I did really like this book. This is an enemies to lovers romance. The main character is Sadie, and she is a freshman in college, and she's so excited to be on campus her first day, seeing where she's gonna be, and she's so excited because she is trying to get a position on this highly esteemed school newspaper. And if she could get a position writing for this paper, it would really help her in the future with her career writing goals. When she gets to campus, much to her chagrin, she finds that Seb, her high school rival, has also been accepted to the school, and he is also trying to get a position on this newspaper. The 2 of them have always been rivals. Their families knew each other for a very long time. They basically grew up together, and they have had this kind of rivalry going for a number of years. Anything that they want to do, they turn it into a competition, and Sadie is just horrified that her arch nemesis is now on campus with her, vying for the same position. It really surprised me, first of all, that I was enjoying a romance after wanting a break so much, and that it was a college romance because it's been a while since I was that age of, typical college students. So I was surprised how much I was relating to them and investing in their story. Not only was it a fun enemies to lovers, which I tend to really like that trope, but they had their own things that they were working through with some of Sadie's background and why she is the way she is, and some of Seb's background and why he is the way that he is, and the way that the two of them help each other move forward. It was just a fun, sweet romance that also just felt real, but I enjoyed it. It was good timing for me. The next book to highlight, I first mentioned this book in my last video, I think, which was the video on the diversity book bingo, and that is What You Were Looking For Is in the Library. This book was, saw recommended in Michael Threet's book club on Fable. Sorry, if you want to stay, stay. If you want to go, go. I think you should stay. I love you. This book was absolutely beautiful. I listened to it on audio and I am so glad that I did. I got it too late to actually participate in the book club on Fable, but I'm so glad that I still gave it a listen. This is a Japanese novel and I read a copy that was translated into English, and it is about a library in Tokyo, and in particular, one librarian at this library. Not only is she an avid reader herself, but she can really tune in to the people coming into the library and what it is that they need. So each section of the book follows a different library patron and some of their backstory, what they're going through, what brings them into the library, and their interactions with this librarian, and the way that the library is there for them in giving them what they need in that moment. This book was so beautiful. It is heartwarming, it is encouraging, it is just so good. I particularly enjoyed the story of Natsumi, who is a new mom and grappling with a lot of the things that come with being a mom, and she also lost her job after having her baby. So things like identity and career and choice and still retaining who you are after becoming a mom, I really liked her story. And I also really like the story of Masao, who is a man who recently retired from his job. And again, that storyline of trying to maintain and find and keep, somehow all three of those verbs, your own identity through life change. It was just a really good book. I highly recommend this one. The next book to highlight is The Last Word by Taylor Adams. I listened to this on audio, and let me tell you, this book was creepy. Creepier than I usually read/listen to. I was giving my best friend some updates because I was like, I don't know if I like this, but also I really do, and I'm super intrigued, and what's even happening, and who even am I enjoying this book? In the scheme of things, it was not that creepy and gory. It just was more than I tend to read, but I really liked it. This is a thriller, and the main character is named Emma. She lives in this isolated beach house, and at the opening of the story, all we know is that for some reason, she wants to be by herself. She's very isolated and alone, and she just wants to sit and read her books. She does have a neighbor across the way. She can kind of see into his house, and he can see into her house, and they'll communicate sometimes via whiteboard. They'll write messages to each other and whatnot. But other than that, she's pretty isolated. She has been enjoying reading varying books, including horror, true crime type of books. So she reads this one book that she just truly does not like. It was poorly written, not great. So she ends up leaving a 1-star review for this book. She types the review, closes her computer, moves on. She gets a notification that someone has responded, and it is none other than the author himself. The author is not pleased with her 1-star review. Long story short, they kind of get into a little back and forth, and it feels like he is vaguely threatening her that if she doesn't remove her review, ... something will happen. And then, how much can I say without spoilers? Pretty early on after that, strange things start happening. She thinks she sees a man in her room watching her while she sleeps. Odd things just start happening. Now, the cool thing about the story is that the bulk of the book takes place in, I want to say, 24 hours? I listened to it on audio, so it's a little hard to keep track of the time frame. It was a very short period of time. So it obviously it was not real time, but because of the much slower pace of the book, I feel like that made it feel more creepy because it felt real time in the book, and it was just a very unique way of telling the story that all happened in that the bulk of the story happened in such a short time frame. And of course, with thrillers, the whole time I'm asking myself, who do we trust? Do we trust the neighbor? Who is this guy? Do we trust all these people? What happened to her husband that she keeps referencing? I love the part of thrillers that is me guessing and trying to formulate theories. I had a lot of theories. Some of them I got correct, some of them I got partially correct, and some of them I did not get at all. But this book, it was very fun, very enjoyable, a great read, and I'm curious to read more by this author. I'm very curious to see if it is going to be as creepy. Because even on audio, it was kind of creeping me out. And I'm like, if an audio version is doing that, anyways, but it was good. I really enjoyed it. Okay, my next highlight is The Paris Apartment by Kelly Bowen. This is the book that I chose from the Quick to Judge tag, and it's one of the books that my sisters gave me for Christmas this last year. And I've talked about it some in varying videos, so I'm only gonna give a quick synopsis, but I will link to where I talk about it more. It's a dual timeline World War II historical fiction with one of the timelines in 2017, where our main character was gifted this apartment in her grandmother's will, and she didn't even know her grandmother had this apartment in Paris. And when she gets the apartment, she finds a whole bunch of paintings. And she's basically on a quest to find out what the deal is with these paintings and what was her grandmother doing during World War II. Then we have the timeline set during World War II and her grandmother, and giving the backstory for all of these paintings. So again, I talk about it a little bit more in some of the other videos, so I'm not gonna go into it too much. I ended up liking this more than I originally thought I would, because again, as I said in that video, I don't often read and enjoy historical fiction, especially World War II historical fiction. So it kind of surprised me. I really liked the way that this author described things, which is the reason I picked it in the Quick to Judge tag. I thought that the way that she used words and described things was very beautiful in a lot of places. One of the reasons that I don't love historical fiction is I find that it often comes with a kind of a cozier vibe, and I don't often enjoy cozy books. Sometimes I do, I don't know, I'm a mood reader, so it really just varies. But there were some elements of that felt a little unrealistic given the content of the book, but overall I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would, and I really liked the writing and the storyline, and yeah, it was a good historical fiction read. And the last book I want to highlight is More or Less Maddie by Lisa Genova. I listened to this one on audio as well, and I ended up counting it for the mental health category on Ellen's Diversity Book Bingo. The main character in this book, her name is Maddie, and she is a college student. There's just a lot going on in life for her. She has a situation going on with her boyfriend, new college, homework, classes, and she has just not been feeling herself. Through a series of events, she gets diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And this book is about her coming to terms with that and finding out, what does that mean? What does that mean as a diagnosis? What does that mean for her personally? What are the things that she's going to do to work through this? It was a very eye-opening account of reading about someone with bipolar disorder and the way that her family responded, and of course they're trying to help, but maybe it wasn't always helpful. And Maddie trying to learn how to accept and live with this diagnosis, and also finding out how to live in the process and not letting it claim her and not letting other people tell her what she is capable of or not capable of. It was a really good book and just a very insightful look. I don't feel like I have read very many books with bipolar characters, so I really enjoyed getting this glimpse into what that could look like. And there you have it. That is my May reading wrap up. I truly had so many good books this month, and it's really hard to pick my top favorite. I think that I'm torn between What You Were Looking For Is in the Library and The Last Word. They both had just very different feels, so it's really hard to pick a favorite. I don't even know. But yes, so many good books, so many highly rated books this month, which is always a great feeling. Until next time, happy reading.